Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown for Season 2 of The Bad Batch. Today we will be breaking down 2 episodes, as this week we got another double episode drop, having the releases of Episode 7 and 8, titled The Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences. Starting off the 7th episode on Coruscant, where we return to a familiar location known as the 79's Clone Cantina. Here we meet and catch up with 2 new clone characters known as Slip and Cade, as Cade discusses Admiral Rampart's corruption and how he is hiding the attack on Tipoca City and Kamino. Slip and Cade were both aboard the ships as they fired down onto the city and planet, and now they have both come to regret it, as it was their home. Cade says that he has sent a message to Rampart warning him to tell the truth of what he's done to the Senate, or Cade would go to the Senate to do it himself. This puts Cade in a huge amount of danger, and Slip warns him about this as they walk out of the cantina, where Cade ends up getting taken out by an assassin. Slip ends up getting out of there after getting on a speeder and driving off, reminding me a lot of the scenes from Attack of the Clones when Anakin and Obi-Wan went after Zam Wesell. We then cut to the Senate building, where a ton of familiar faces take part in this hearing as they discuss with Rampart and they discuss the defense recruitment bill. We see the new head of the banking clan, Senator Riduli, who replaced San Hill, who we saw in the prequels. And we see another character who worked alongside San Hill and the separatists during the war, Shu Mai, who is the head of the Commerce Guild and who we saw in the background a few times during the prequels as well. Along with these two, we also see Senator Pamlo, who was seen in Rogue One, as well as Bail Organa, of course being the adoptive father of Princess Leia. Bail questions what the Emperor thinks of said bill, as he is a no-show to the Senate meeting, and Mas Ammeda, Palpatine's right-hand man for these sort of ordeals, who we have seen a countless number of times right beside Palpatine and doing his deeds in the prequels as well as in the comics, tells Bail that the Emperor wants what is best for the people of the Empire. This new recruitment bill would in turn end up replacing the clones and would have the Empire recruiting humans to join their ranks to increase numbers and at a cheaper cost. Palpatine and the other higher-ups of the Empire like Admiral Rampart and Tarkin want this bill to be signed to replace the clones and have stormtroopers instead, because they want a larger army even if they are less skilled in combat than the clones, as it will be more intimidating and will grow their power throughout the galaxy immensely. Their main reasoning behind getting the clones replaced with humans is because of their accelerated aging, which will cause them to not be able to serve for a longer period of time as they age extremely fast and will end up dying of age, compared to that of a regular human, which is what they want to recruit with now. Senator Chuchi is also amongst the Senate in this meeting as well, and she appears to defend and advocate for the clones and their rights. Chuchi appeared in the Clone Wars a couple of times, where she worked alongside Ahsoka after she was practically held hostage by the Trade Federation. Her father is actually the character that George Lucas played in the background of Revenge of the Sith. Rampart just continues to be an absolute scumbag and continues his lies and tries to act like he cares about the clones as well, and the bill signing gets paused for the time being. And this is where Mas Ammeda meets with Rampart in the halls and warns him that this bill must be signed as the Emperor demands it, and if it doesn't, it will be a bad look for Rampart, practically threatening him. Chuchi appears at the 79's Clone Cantina to meet with some clones here, where she ends up gaining their trust after she promises them that she will fight for them and their rights. Slip is here at the cantina as well and meets with Chuchi before she ends up leaving and cautiously warns her about Rampart and his corruption and lies, and what actually happened on Kamino, as Rampart ordered his Venator to fire on the city and his lies of it being a natural disaster are of course not true. Slip tells Chuchi to check the logs on the Venator, which he later does say that he saved a backup of the files to the ship's central system. Chuchi ends up meeting with Rampart and she questions him about Kamino, where he lies to her about what happened and says that he was off-world training when it happened. She ends up leaving after making a slight remark that she knows what truly happened there on Kamino and Tipoca City. She heads to the alleyways of Coruscant, where she meets with Bail Organa and they discuss Rampart and the fate of Kamino, and he ends up warning her of what danger snooping around can put her in, where we see Rampart order an assassin to go take out both Slip and Senator Chuchi if she ends up meeting with the clone to gather more intel again, in which she does, in the alleyways of Coruscant, where Slip is waiting for a contact of his to make him disappear and escape the reaches of the Empire. This contact of his is of course Captain Rex, as we later learn in the episode. The assassin watches over them from a rooftop and ends up eliminating Slip and going after Chuchi after taking out both of her guards and trapping her in an old run-down building, where she is nearly terminated herself. Before, of course, Captain Rex comes in and saves her. After stunning the assassin, Rex takes off the helmet of him and they find out that this guy is just another clone as well, but he's not a trooper and has no designated markings or identification, as they have all been removed. Rex brings Chuchi to a secure location to interrogate this clone, and this is the Martez sisters' garage, and Rex says that they are not around right now, and I think that this is a very good thing. The assassin wakes back up and Rex tries questioning him on who sent him or who he is taking orders from, and the assassin answers none of his questions and barely says a word here, besides making a remark that he knows exactly who Rex is and how he is fighting the wrong fight, where he ends up biting on his tooth, which electrifies him, frying his brain, further hiding any sort of answers that could have been discovered from him, which is where this episode ends off. And this brings us right into episode 8 as we arrive back on Ord Mantell, where the Batch are hanging out and waiting in their ship, the Marauder, where Omega is meditating, in which she says she learned from Gungi, but she says that it does not work for her the same way that it does for him, and Echo says that that is because he is a Jedi and she is not. Echo reminiscing on how the Batch ended up saving him from his imprisonment on Skako Minor, and the Batch end up getting a holo message from Rex, where he asks for their assistance on a mission on Coruscant, which is a big ask, as Hunter says, as it is the heart of the Empire and the planet where their headquarters are and whatnot. But of course, the Empire thinks that the Batch are all dead from the events on Tipoca City, so nobody will be looking for them here, so they end up agreeing to go help Rex out. So they head to Coruscant and fly over the beautiful city. Something that I really wish we could see on Coruscant sometime soon is the former Jedi temple here, which has now been turned into Palpatine's headquarters. Anyways though, the Batch meet up with Rex and Senator Chuchi at the Martez sisters' hangar, where Rex informs them of and shows them the assassin who was after Chuchi, and then informs them of the mission and that they need to retrieve the files from Rampart's Venator that showcase the attack on Kamino before the Senate meeting and bill signing is finished tomorrow. The Batch agree to the mission and Omega ends up tagging along with Chuchi instead of the Batch, where Chuchi ends up showing her the Senate building and room after running into Rampart, where she informs Omega that the clones do not have any representation in the Senate whatsoever, but she is working hard to be that for them. End up meeting with Senator Organa, where he tells Chuchi to meet up with and speak to former Senator Hallie Bertoni, who was in charge of the Defense Finance Committee of Kamino and was a former senator for Kamino as well, telling Chuchi to follow the money as it always leads the trail. And in the background of the streets of Coruscant here, we can hear the different messages being spread throughout the planet, giving out propaganda for this new recruitment bill, brainwashing the people of the Empire. Omega and Chuchi meet with Hallie, who we can see is a very old Kaminoan, and also one of the few surviving ones in the galaxy now after the attack on Kamino and Tipoca City, which wiped out most of the species. Chuchi questions Hallie on the clone funds that were moved off-world conveniently right before the fall of Tipoca City when it was not supposed to be moved. Hallie informs Chuchi that she did indeed know about the funds being moved, and that those that died on the planet and those that are still around and survived serve no interest or importance to her. She also makes a remark about Lama Su and says that he was extremely arrogant and was often too sure that the Republic, now Empire, would stay dependent on the cloning and the armies that he created for them. Lama Su, of course, being the leader of Kamino and the one who basically oversaw all of the cloning and meetings with the officials from the Republic, as we saw in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, when he met with Obi-Wan Kenobi to discuss the clone army. Chuchi says that Hallie should testify to the Senate with her and that she is running out of time. Hallie says that she needs way more than just the words from a former senator, and that she needs concrete evidence, which is of course what the Batch are working on retrieving. Which is where we then cut back to the Batch and Rex making their way through some maintenance tunnels so that they can sneak into the shipyard and aboard Rampart's Venator. Here, Echo and Rex speak with one another, and Rex says that these days help is hard to come by, and that him and his other associates are run thin trying to help out other clones, their brothers, get away from the Empire and to freedom. Right here is where Echo sort of just takes us all in, and and I think this is where he makes that decision that we find out about at the end of the episode. The batch sneak their way through the shipyard and use a lift to get onto the Venator, where they stun some of the guards and make it to the bridge to retrieve the files that they need to get to Chuchi before the Senate meeting is over with. The power needs to be rerouted so that they can retrieve these files though, which alerts all of the clone forces at the shipyard of a unauthorized breach, where the batch get into a little skirmish with the clones here, and we can see that they continue to only use stun blasts on them as they still care about their brothers and know that they are only brainwashed. The batch end up getting the files downloaded onto a chip, and Echo starts the Venator up so that they can use the escape pods on board to escape in a timely and sort of secret fashion, and they end up getting out of there with the files. We then cut to the Senate building, where things are starting to get a bit close for time, as Chuchi calls out Rampart for his actions of moving the cloning funds, and then claims that he was responsible for what happened to Tipoca City, where all of the representatives present here just grow in shock and awe. For making such claims against Rampart, a few of the senators present here say that she should be removed from the Senate and taken accountable for such atrocious claims. And without her evidence in hand, this is almost imminent. But of course, the batch comes speeding through Coruscant to deliver the files to Omega, who then races them to bring them to Senator Organa, who joins the discussion in the Senate, informing everyone there that new evidence has been brought to the light, and hands the files to Senator Chuchi, who plugs in the chip and plays the recordings of Rampart's attack on Camino in front of the entire Senate, the start of Rampart's downfall. A siren starts going off as a Senate pod in the middle of the building opens up and rises, just like we saw it do when Yoda and Palpatine were dueling on it in the Revenge of the Sith. The pod rises with Mas Ammeda standing to the side as none other than Emperor Palpatine has arrived to acknowledge the claims and the situation at hand. As everyone in the Senate grows silent, Mas Ammeda says that these claims against Admiral Rampart are true, and he tells the guards to arrest him. Palpatine then steps forward and begins to speak, thanking Senator Chuchi for bringing this to light, and says that Rampart will be held accountable for his actions, but he did not act alone, as he twists this entire situation into his favor, being the master manipulator that he is, and says the clones also acted in this and that they went ahead and took orders without such hesitation, asking the Senate if such an army full of people that are willing to fire on entire cities, yet alone their own homeworld city, should be trusted. Palpatine believes that this legislation and this bill is the Empire's future and its best interest, and thus will bring forth a new era heralded by the Imperial Stormtrooper, putting aside another asset in his games, the clones, just like he did with the Jedi before. Rex, Chuchi, and the Bad Batch meet back up in the Martez sisters' garage, and Rex says that Palpatine was one step ahead of them here, just like he was during the entire war. And Chuchi then promises Omega and the Batch that she will keep fighting for the clones no matter what. Before heading off, the Batch all say their goodbyes to Rex, Chuchi, and then Echo, as he has decided to leave the Batch for now to go with Rex and help him save their brothers. Omega obviously gets really sad about this, and they have a pretty touching and emotional moment as Echo says goodbye to her, at least for now, as she cries and they hug one another. He tells her to keep up on the training until they see each other again, and she then walks to the Marauder and the Batch take off as Echo watches them fly away, with Omega inside comforting herself with her plush Lula that used to belong to Wrecker, and this is where the episode ends off. Overall, two insanely beautiful and extremely fun episodes, both of which did not have too much action in them, and I actually really liked that, as we explored the political side of the galaxy during this time, and got to see the return of the likes of Palpatine as well as Captain Rex. These two episodes being some of my favorite episodes of the Bad Batch, especially from season 2, and I think both of them would be around an 8 or 9 out of 10 if I had to rate them. But of course, I would like to hear your thoughts on these two episodes as well, so make sure to leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown on these two episodes, don't forget to give it a like. And with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.